Won't go. Unbelievable.
And we're live.
And blooming-tastic, I should say. So not our topic. Oh, shut up. Shut up. Just be quiet.
Your hands are a blur. You are the mix master.
I need to come to one of your DJ schools. That's what I need to do. I need to come to one of your things, and I could be like Emily Spinham Dex.
You want to see DJ Norms, Chloe Norman?
Do I?
Yeah, she's
sure?
very good.
You sure I want to do that? I definitely want to do that.
If you want to see some beat match mixing in action,
yeah,
and
I don't know. Suddenly you're talking Chinese. I don't know what you're saying to me.
If you want to be slick on the decks and see her do it, yes.
I don't want to slip on the decks. I slipped on the pavement and broke my hand.
Slick on the decks, slick, dear.
2:30. Do you need the toilet?
Thursday.
Now, you had a wonderful weekend. Hi, everybody. I'm Russ Kane. He is Neil Long. This is the Daily Show exclusive to Men's Radio Station, part of the Sound Mind Radio Group.
Can I just take 30 seconds to tell you what I did last week? Because it was such a mega week.
I want to hear all the rude details.
And feel free to contact me for any of this stuff, folks. I helped someone manage their dental pain to get it down to a really tolerable level using neurolinguistic programming. That was pretty cool. I did 7 radio shows, 5 on Radio Jackie and 2 on here with
Radio what? Huh?
Radio someone or other. And then my main 2 shows of the week on MRS. And I did 2 epic DJ gigs and 2 really good comedy gigs as well. So busy boy last week.
And tell us, just for the sake of completion, what DJ gig was that?
One of them was a silent disco. The other was the son of a longtime colleague of ours, Mick Brown's son, Josh Brown.
Good boy, Pat and Mick.
And Josh is a lovely lad. And it was an absolute privilege to do his wedding. So Josh and Sarah,
I can't let this pass. What is a silent disco?
Oh, it's basically you put headphones on. There's no speakers, and you can listen to one of 2 channels. There was 2 DJs. There was me on one, playing one set of music, and Mr. E, who you know, who's my producer, on another channel, playing another set of music. Never
liked him. So what? You stand on the dance floor wearing headphones and
it's fantastic fun. It's fantastic fun.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
It really is. Absolutely fantastic fun. I loved it.
Wow. Okay. I think I've seen it once. I think I went to some wedding or something, and it was there. It's a weird feeling because you're looking around thinking, are these people having a fit? Are they?
Oh, it's completely surreal. It's completely surreal.
When I was doing the Edinburgh Fringe, and I was hanging out with Gail Porter, who's going down a storm up there this year.
Gail Porter has a show.
Yeah, got a show up there. She did it, and I wrote to her, said, "You've got to do this." She was really nervous, but it's getting beautiful reviews, as is Bennett, and a lot of my mates are up there doing stuff. But I've done it. That was sufficient for me. I was happy with that. I'm very happy with that. But it was a one off the bucket list. And Gail, they do a tour of Edinburgh when it's not pouring with rain, and they do this tour, and it's silent disco. So you see all these people running around, and you think, what's all that about? Now my guest has disappeared. He was there. Where the hell he's gone? God knows. He was there a moment ago. What have we got? Azadon Brown, who says, Neil Long, intriguing concept.
It really is. I know Azadon Brown is a very senior psychological professional in the USA. Are you familiar with? That's like telling you grandma how to suck eggs. I'm sure you're familiar with NLP. Do you practice it, Azadon Brown, or not? Or do you have a different discipline?
And let's go look at this. Greetings, one and all, from the glorious comfort. The word of is missing there. A train speeding south from Scotland.
Good morning, afternoon, day, sleep.
LOL. I don't know. Does it mean laugh out loud, lots of love, or just his name LOL? Like LOL Creme from 10cc. Dave Sleep heading down. It's fantastic. He's watching us on the side. Not a bad signal today. It's a miracle, isn't it? It's a miracle. Same equipment, working great. Unbelievable. Right. I don't know where the guest is. He's bizarrely disappeared. What a thing to do. Spends ages. I've had more emails about this guest, more information. It's always the way.
Sounds very interesting chap, actually. There's some stuff I
He's
want to
a
ask.
bear. I've known him. I've never met him, and I've no idea. We've been emailing literally for years.
But isn't this the modern day thing? I've had really good, I wouldn't say personal relationships, but business relationships.
Easy fella, easy.
No, with business relationships with people. Yep. One of who's coming on later on this show, actually, and some of them are kind of half friendships, half business relationships, and who I literally have never met. I've never met them, and yet we have a perfectly good working relationship.
Neil?
Pat Scotty, the great thing about silent disco is you can gig practically anywhere without a standard PA system and taking the amazing surroundings. One of our young DJs did one in Manchester Cathedral. How cool is that? The funny thing is,
not during the funeral service, it wasn't.
We had a blue channel and a red channel, and Mr. E's on the red with reggae, Motown, and soul, and I'm on the blue with party anthems and club classics. And the thing is, people are mirroring each other's moves. You know, like people do on the dance floor, they're mirroring, but they're listening to different songs, and it is really, really bizarre.
What is this? I have to say that thanks to this radio station, Dave Sleet, this is from Glassy Amanda, Dave Sleet helped me out at midnight via Veronica Curran the other night as I was being fish bombed within inches of my life. What a wonderful community. Well, that's what we've tried to do. I don't understand. Neil, you're a young rooster dooster, a man about town.
Yeah, I know what fishing is.
Fish bomb me. I know what fishing. What were they trying to do?
Well, fish bombing, I would imagine, is just lots and lots of fishing, loads of it. But remember, it's fishing with a PH.
Fish bomb. I'm your fish bomb. You can try to hack me, but you just won't get along. Fish bomb.
Speaking of scammers, do you want a quick scam alert while we're talking about that?
Yeah, talking of that.
Right, hey, because I have a little game I like to play.
Hazel Don Brown, Northeastern United States. I'm familiar with NLP. Well, I'm not a trained NLP practitioner. I got to admit, my work reflects many aspects of the NLP model.
I think our guest is here. Can I just share this scam quickly? So don't get fooled by this one. This was actually one of my Facebook friends, but what they do, they hack into their account and then pretend to be them. So obviously you think it's your friend. And when I say Facebook friend, it's not someone I've ever met. It's someone who knows me off the radio. So that's a bit of a red flag. But if you know someone really well, if it's a relative, you might be fooled into thinking it was them. And that's one of the ways they catch you. But my Facebook friend, it's not him, said, "Hello, how are you doing?" I said, "Okay, thanks. How can I help?" He said, "Glad to hear from you." And then straight in, "Have you heard from the new EPA yet?" And I said, "Do you want to hear it?" I said,
"Yeah, go on.
EPA, what is that?"
In a minute,
he said, "Yes, I'm on antibiotics." So I assumed EPA was a horrible disease. But no, it's actually the Environmental Protection Agency. They're helping a lot of people out to maintain their standard of living, retired, deaf, workers, widows, disabled and unemployed. And you don't have to pay it back. You sure you haven't heard from them? I said, "No, how do I get involved? How exciting." And he said, "Oh, you can also get the benefit as I do. The program is for everyone that qualifies for it. I got £70,000 and I didn't have to pay it back. Can I pass you on to the agent that deals with it? And would you like to give it a try?" I said, "Oh, please do." He said, and then sent me a link. He said, "Click on the page and ask for Agent Frank Kelly Richard." And said, "A friend of yours," bear in mind, I might think it's a friend I know, "told you to apply." So I waited 5 minutes and said, "The link doesn't work." He said, "Just click on the link." I said, "Yes, just did it. I see your name." And he said, "I shouldn't believe you." He said, "You received 71,000, not 70. If you can't tell me the truth, Eddie, why should I believe you? Hey, let's forget the money. Can we just go on a date instead? I think I saw you on bigboys.com. I'm lonely and alone. It's true that being a multimillionaire doesn't make you happy." So I left it there for a bit. And then I said, "Just for transparency, I don't use my real name on Facebook, but since we know each other well enough now, I feel safe to share. My real name is Ivor Glasscock. I was raised by pygmies in the jungle and recently moved to New York. I have all the money I ever need, but no affection. Where are you based? Would you like to meet for a meal? An intimate meal at the disused warehouse on the outskirts of town?" And I haven't heard from him since.
I can't imagine why.
And that was today's episode of Fun with Scammers. But the serious side is, don't get scammed. Don't get fooled.
I love that. Right. This guest, I had no idea what he looks like. We have emailed each other literally for years. Always love his emails. Always love his information. And it's a subject very close to my heart. So please give a huge automotive welcome to Graham Hill. Da-da-da.
Hello.
Hi, Graham. How are you? Graham? Graham, can you hear us? Over. Hello, this is Gene Metcalf with BFPO 25, wishing you a happy Christmas, all in Germany. Can you hear us, Graham? Because we can't hear you.
I can hear you.
No, we can't hear you properly. No, that is, I'm afraid that is an unacceptable connection, Graham. You're frozen and we can't hear you. Can you hear him, Neil?
I can hear him, but bitty, jumping in and out, and the picture's frozen.
Oh, no, the picture's frozen.
Graham,
you're going to have to reboot your computer. I'm sorry, we can't take that. Sorry, mate. That is no good. It's going to have to reboot.
Oh, bum.
Anyway.
So I clicked the link that he sent me and went to Frank Kelly Richard. And he says,
"Oh my God."
And I said, Frank, a friend of mine sent me your way. Apparently there's a benefit I can claim. And then in capitals, he's shouting. He said, welcome to Environment Protection Agency grant page. Thanks for getting in touch. My name is Agent Frank Richard.
Agent Frank Richard.
Let's have your full name so we can run a check on our database.
Of course.
So I told him, again, I don't use my real name. My name is Ivor Glasscock. And I haven't heard from him, but I'll update you if I do.
But why, Mr. Glasscock?
Because it's fun to play with scammers. And if you want to see, I've talked about these guys before. If you want to see some really good scammer payback, there's a couple of YouTube channels. One is Scammer Payback, and another one.
That's great.
I've just discovered it. It's called, and it's gone out my head. I'll find it. But they're brilliant because they actually, I mean, these guys, they will actually fly to the other side of the world and knock on someone's door and bust them. They will fly to India and catch people face to face. And they're brilliantly sarcastic the way they do it.
I don't want to be rude. It's always India. Can I put my hand in the hornet's nest while we're waiting for Graham to either arrive or not arrive? I know nothing about football. Nothing. And I don't follow football. If you told me Danny Blanchflower was still playing for Tottenham Hotspur, I'd probably believe you. Now, I think it was tremendous what the Women's World Cup was. Great. Fantastic family atmosphere. Wonderful sportsmanship. Terrific. And I think the Lionesses, as they have been called, did a magnificent job and they represented the country superbly.
I feel a butt coming on.
No, not against them. Against the media. Against certain radio / television stations who bring on race baiters. Who bring them on. So the new bullshit that's come out this morning is this. And it really grinds my gears. They get people on. Well, there weren't enough black players. There weren't enough black players. Look, idiot. A football team is a meritocracy. You're only in that team if you're the best in the country. Not because the colour of your skin, the colour of your eyes, whether you've got a ponytail. This is race baiting bullshit. And it has to stop. And the other thing I want to say, that it's disgraceful. Why couldn't they just say this was the England team, the best players that we have in a team, and leave it at that? No, let's get the race baiters on. And it's the same shit. I don't notice, by the way, and what really annoys me, when it comes to athletics, people of colour are way more gifted, better runners, just better athletes.
Agreed. And dancers. No, it's a bit of a stereotype.
Well, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go down that route. I'm just sticking with the world of sport, just for a second. All right. Nobody says, "Hey, do you know what? There's too many black people in the running team. There's too many black people in the hurdle team. Too many black people in the badminton team." Nobody says that because everyone accepts they're there because they are the best in the country. They are the best at what they do. It's a meritocracy. There's no race baiting goes on with that. None. And neither should there be. So it's disgraceful that these media companies, and I will call them out, GB News, etc. Why allow these idiots on? They're only there to cause trouble. They have no valid point.
They just want to start drama and cause a fight, or a Twitter storm in the modern day vernacular. I don't understand it. You're right. It is race baiting. You're right. It is a meritocracy. And I don't care. And most right-minded people wouldn't care whether someone's black or white or yellow with pink spots. It really doesn't matter if you're good at what you do.
Are they the best player?
Simple as that.
Are they the best runner? Are they the best driver? Are they the best? You've got to be at the top of your game. No pun intended. So who is to blame here, Neil? Let me just pose the question. Who is to blame? The media companies with their producers say, I know. Let's get some tension. Let's get some anger. Let's get the race baiters on. Or is it people who just make a living out of doing this? That's what they do. They make a living.
Well, kind of both. And I don't want to sound controversial, but if it gets a response and people buy into it and it starts the fight, then they've succeeded. But there must be a demand. People must want that drama. Otherwise, it wouldn't sell. So kind of everyone's responsible because there couldn't be one without the other. You can't have the supplier without the people that demand it.
But if it's the only poker game in town, know what I mean? So if that's your show, and you get these twerps on spouting their racist nonsense, because racism works in all directions. It's not a one-way street. It's not. I get so annoyed because just for a little scintilla of time, we had the opportunity to be proud and go, you know what? They did brilliantly, this team. They got through to the final. They played their hearts out. In the end, Spain were better by 1 goal.
Yeah, and for that matter, well done, Spain.
Well, so precisely.
I don't care that they're Spanish. They won.
It's a thing. And you can say, well, it's national pride or whatever. It doesn't matter. But you couldn't even be allowed to say, well done. Let's just bask in that glow just for 5 minutes. No, let's get the race baiters on. Let's cause a non-existent stir. And just because there's a lot of, I'm sorry to say it, there's a lot of very stupid people out there who just listen and they go, oh, that's right. Ooh, why? Because they're not good enough. I wouldn't be good enough. Neil wouldn't be good enough. It's on the men's team. It's ridiculous. You've got to be the best of the best, and that's all there is to it. End of. Fat Scotty, I'm not putting that up. It's very funny, but I'm not putting it up.
That I'll tell you a story in a sec. That scam baiting company, if you look these folks up on YouTube, Trilogy Media, it's 2 guys, and I have to say they are brilliant. They are absolutely brilliant, comedically brilliant, brilliant in what they do, catching scammers, and technically brilliant as well. Really, really like what they do. And if you want to see scammers really get their comeuppance, because they literally will fly over to the other side of the world and doorstep them and and they will go all out to catch these people. And they're absolutely brilliant. In fact, I might even send them this clip actually and say hi to them.
I like the ones where they've got the police. And should we try? I'm going to try once more, then I'm going to have to give up on this, I'm afraid. So we're going to try Graham Hill once more. Is he there? Graham, we're going to try you once more, fella, and then we're going to have to abandon it. We're going to
Graham, move to your right a bit, dude.
Let's give it a shot.
This is going very well, I think. Very, very well.
Is it?
All right, Graham, let's stick with that. You're still frozen.
Hear me?
Let's just listen to you. Well, we can hear you. We can hear you great. Now, Graham, what's going on? You've got a new book out, but I want to talk about the whole business about EVs. That's what. Tell us about the new book first, and then I want to talk about EVs.
Okay. Well, as you know, I've been involved in vehicle finance probably 40 odd years, and that's how I think we first came into contact with each other. But about 2010, I moved our first couple of Nissan Leafs to a couple of customers. I provided the finance for a company, and they had a couple of Nissan Leafs to try it out, and I could see the future. Electric vehicles was the way to go. So I started doing more research for customers, and I got very involved in it. And so over the years, there was far less information coming out than for people to get into and feel comfortable getting into electric cars. So it took about 2.5 years for me to put the first version of the book together, which was Electric Cars, The Truth Revealed. And the reason I called it that name was because there was so little positive and clear information out there for people that wanted to transition, but were just frightened. They would just like this idea. I mean, it's 800 volts traveling around an electric car. 240 volts will kill you at home. So 800 volts, you have an accident. All these sorts of things, all these questions were coming up from customers. So I put together.
Yeah, actually, what would happen
if you had an accident with 800
volts?
I've now released the latest version.
Go on, Graham, can you hear?
Very little. I mean, there's lots and lots. There's lots and lots of. I can hear you. Yes.
Go on. Well, Neil just asked the question. Neil
he's gone a bit quiet now, but.
Well, Neil asked your question.
Graham, I'm so sorry. We have a slight delay, so it sounds like we're talking over you. I promise you we're not. It's not deliberate. Welcome to the show, by the way. I'm Neil. Nice to meet you. What does happen if you have an accident at 800 volts?
Nice to meet you, Neil. Very little. I mean, there's a lot of concerns about the batteries, leakage from the batteries. The batteries can catch fire. They don't need a spark like you would do with a petrol vehicle. There are a lot of dangers involved in that, but you shouldn't be overly concerned. Get out of the car, leave the car. The big problem really is what happens before any likelihood of fire takes place, and that's some gas leaks from the chamber of the battery compartment. This is something you're never told. The gases that come from the battery compartment consist of there's a large number of gases. The two major ones are carbon monoxide and hydrogen cyanide. Both of those can knock you out and kill you. Now,
it's a bit.
Yeah. Now that is far more dangerous than what is likely to happen. When you've had an accident, you're going to get out of the car quick anyway. So, but when you see a little bit of mist appearing inside the car, is it condensation or is it the forerunner to the car actually exploding and catching light? And the fact is that you can get knocked out and you can die as a result of that gas. Now, you're never told that. I've taken this up with the industry. I spoke to a guy who had a string of dealerships. And I said, look, did you know about this? And he said, well, I'd heard something along those lines. And I said, well, don't you tell your salesman? And his answer to that was, bad news doesn't sell cars. Now, if that is the attitude of people towards the potential dangers in the cars, and they're not massive. There's lots and lots of protection in electric cars. I'm not saying that it's likely to happen, but as I say to people when I do presentations, someone wins the lottery every week. So the chances of you having a fire in the car, gas releasing into the cabin, is very, very remote. But knowing the possibility means that you're forearmed. So all these other things, it's like you go and get your car from the car dealership and he takes you through the car and he explains a few bits and pieces to you. There's some minimum standards that have been set down by the government. Absolutely useless. They don't go into any of the depths whatsoever that they should do. Things like what happens if you get caught in a flood? What happens if you're stuck in a traffic jam? You've only got 20% power left in your car. I mean, allowance is made, certainly for the hard shoulder, for people if they are desperate to get some charge in their car, they're allowed to use the hard shoulder if we've still got, we're not all turned into smart motorways, but if there's still a hard shoulder, allow them to get off of the motorway without getting fined for it for using the hard shoulder. There's a lot of things that need to be done to get over the psychological issues that come along with electric cars.
So much to ask there. So those two deadly gases, one was hydrogen cyanide and the other one's carbon monoxide, right? How are they formed? And that's only in electric cars, right? Not all cars.
Yeah, not petrol.
Only in electric cars. they get what's known as thermal runout. So that means if there's any damage to the battery as a result of the accident, or if there's a manufacturing fault, I'll move across, you can't quite see me. If there's a manufacturing fault, you can get this thermal runout, which then causes these gases to be created. And that can happen. It's highly unlikely, but knowing the possibility, I mean, let's face it, you drive a petrol car and you drive a petrol car with a bomb in the boot. You know, you've got a petrol tank in there, you have an accident, the liquor tank, and there's a spark, someone's smoking or something, and suddenly you've got an explosion. We do it every day of the week. There's 100,000 car fires a year. Now, much of those are as a result of people stealing cars and setting light to them. But there is a chance that if you have an accident, the thing's going to explode. When you're just driving the car, it's highly unlikely that the petrol tank's going to explode. But just driving your electric car, there is a possibility. Now, I'm a great believer in telling people everything. Make sure they're aware. And then if anything like that happens, just to be on the safe side, it could be condensation, but it could be hydrogen cyanide and carbon monoxide mixed together. But these sorts of issues to explain to people. And if it's explained, I believe we'll be moving a lot quicker once people understand what these are, because what we don't want is people having a bad experience when the car's been delivered and they say, well, I wish I'd been told this because I'm now very concerned.
Yeah, forewarned is forearmed.
And that's why I've set up another thing.
Graham, I want to ask Graham. Graham.
Exactly right. Yep.
I want to ask a question. I will be the last person
Go on, far away.
in the UK. Can you hear me? Because it's quite complicated. I will be the last person in the UK to switch over to an electric car.
I can hear you.
I think it is the biggest con, the second biggest con that we're being forced to do. When will there be a proper infrastructure in this country that you can go from A to B without worrying yourself sick that you're going to get stuck? Because we have been sold an absolute pup. We've been sold a pup. And that pup is this: that diesels and current cars are all filthy. They're not. The modern technology is quite extraordinary. It's not even the same as 5 years ago. That's number one. In London, Sadiq Khan's views on this are nothing short of disgraceful. But anyway, we'll move that to one side. There's no and the other thing is, it'll be much cheaper than petrol. No, it isn't. And you can just go and get a copy and your car will be filled. No, it won't. Because if you go into a motorway service station, a lot of the recharging machines don't work. Charging takes up to 40 minutes to an hour. If there's somebody or two people in front of you, that's another 2 hours you're going to have to wait. I'd rather hammer a masonry nail into my skull than have an electric car and go through that crap, where I can go into a garage, be in and out 6 minutes. I'm done. And if I fill up once a month, it's a lot. I hardly use my car. It's a nonsense. When are they going to have the infrastructure in place? Or are they? Or is it like HS2? No, we don't know the answer. Graham, can't hear you. Can't hear you, Graham. Sorry. Graham, no. Neil, can you hear Graham? Because I can't.
I can't. That's a shame because
I'm sorry, fella. We cannot hear you. It's impossible. I'm going to have to take him off. That's a real shame. Blast, I was enjoying that. Graham, I'm very sorry. We can't hear you and you're freezing and can't do it. Right, let's move on to your guest, Neil. That went terribly well. I was really looking forward to that as well. Blast. Okay, after you, Neil. Graham, we'll get you back another day when you got a better internet connection, because we just can't take that. I'm sorry. Right, off you go, Neil.
Okay. Just 1 second. I'm just preparing something to put on the screen because
I'm going to welcome. The heck with this.
You do that.
Joe Happiness Howarth. How are you, Joe?
I'm very well. How are you?
We're fine. We can see you. We can hear you. You're moving properly. It's a proper internet connection, which is, of course, what is required. Graham, we'll get you back another day, mate. We can't, I'm so sorry. That's just impossible. It's a shame because I really, really want to talk to you. Joe, why are you Joe Happiness Howarth?
Happiness Howarth because I run a company called the Happiness Club and I teach people how to be happy. So it's become my sort of unofficial middle name.
That's very nice. That's very nice. That's very nice. This has just come up. This is fun. LinkedIn user. So I think you're coming in on LinkedIn. So I don't know who it is. New to the Daily Show. Hello. Great stuff, Russ. Flying like a bless you. It was a long time ago, but thank you. You've got a good memory. And new all night long. Bloody hell. There we are. Right. How do you teach people to be happy? God, I'd like to know.
Well, listen to this woman then. She's amazing. I'll be with you in a minute, Joe. I'm just getting your link ready.
Okay.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you. How do you teach them to be happy? Well, first of all, you teach them to start taking responsibility for themselves, for their own lives, which I have to admit to having been a person that didn't do that. Because I used to blame everybody else for the way that my life was.
I blame Neil.
Do you know, I think, honestly,
frankly, it gets me through the day.
Not funny.
I think if I
Joe thought it was funny.
That, some blame may be rightly placed. No, I'm joking. That's not right.
Neil's fabulous. We love Neil. Love Neil.
Of course we do.
Don't like him. Love him. But I don't like him.
Well, you're just digging yourself a deeper hole there.
I don't care.
Right, I'm back, and you're in trouble, Russ Kane. Hello, Joe. How are you?
Not for the first time today. Anyway, there we go. Come on.
How are you, Joe?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Continue with what you were saying, because it's a great question. You talk about taking responsibility. For me, responsibility has always had that kind of heaviness to it, but because we're limited with words here, because we've got this concepts and the words to describe them, and responsibility has always had that kind of heaviness to it, in a sense of when we were growing up, you're responsible for that. The teacher says, who's responsible for this? It's a negative, but it's actually the part. It's actually the pathway to our freedom, isn't it? Tell us more about that.
It's also part of growing up.
Well, it is.
Responsibility.
It is, but the way you've just described it, Neil, the reason that feels heavy is because that's not responsibility, that's blame, right? That's somebody telling you how crap you are.
Yes.
Which is not the same thing at all. Blame and responsibility are completely different things, but they get mixed up very often. And yes, it is part of being a grown-up, but I have met an enormous amount of grown-ups who don't take responsibility for their own thoughts, their own actions, their own behaviors, their own lives. Wow. They push the blame out from themselves onto whatever's around them, which isn't actually taking responsibility.
And it's also ultimately disempowering, because the other side of your work, I think there's an equal counterbalance that needs to be put in here, because on one side, yes, we're responsible, but on the other side, we're responsible, and that means we have the power to do anything. So to say you're just responsible, that gives me a bit of heaviness. But if you're responsible, excuse me, and you have the power,
God getting you back
as a sovereign being to be, do, and have anything, that kind of sweetens the deal a bit, doesn't it? Because it's ultimately, and the converse is true as well. If you blame other people, you're not claiming your power, right?
Two things here, Joe. Two things that I want to ask. I'm not with Neil on it's heavy, because taking responsibility, you are ultimately responsible for yourself. Mm-hmm. That's the only person you can kind of truly be responsible for.
I agree.
Right? So it's only heavy, in my opinion. I'm not saying Neil's wrong. What I'm saying, it's only heavy if you make it heavy and you feel it's onerous. That's number one. But Joe, I assume you have to hit to use Neil's wonderful phrase, the sweet spot. Not a phrase I ever use, it's Neil's. And you hit the sweet spot between blame on one side, blaming everybody else for the shit in your life and you're miserable, it's everybody else's fault and everyone's against me, and B, beating the crap out of yourself endlessly. Everything is my fault and I'm a terrible person. Not telling you where I sit on that spectrum, but anyone who knows me well knows exactly where I sit on that
I wonder which one.
Not good.
I would like to unpack both of those, but let's just go back one step because we all do that one. That's a great point. Great point. So ultimately, it's the key to our freedom, right? That balance.
Yeah, totally. Well, but also actually what you have just described, Russ, is they're both blame.
Yeah, that's self-blame.
Right? Yeah. Self-blame is not responsibility. Taking responsibility isn't always easy and it isn't always pretty. It's not, it is always empowering. And in my experience, it is mostly liberating. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's always pretty, because sometimes to take responsibility, you have to look at things you've done or said and admit that you've done or said them and allow yourself.
And how do you do that without hating yourself? Because I did a bit of that a couple of years ago. There was a situation that arose in my life and I felt terrible guilt over it. And it was pure self-blame. How could I have done that better with awareness rather than guilt?
So for me, that's where self-compassion would come in, right? Which, again, we're much harder on ourselves than we are on other people. And we would beat ourselves up to kingdom come for something, doing or saying something that we would excuse somebody else for doing or saying.
Yeah, and you're so right, because everyone was saying to me, Neil, if I was in that situation, I would have done exactly what you did and you did nothing wrong. And if I'd have known someone in that situation, I would have said, oh my goodness me, it's an impossible situation. You're doing the best you can given the knowledge you have. Stop it. And yet, would I stop it? Oh no, Mr. Inner Critic. And literally my own thoughts could annihilate me on a given day. Annihilate. And it was me doing it to me. It's like mental S&M without the fun.
Yay, and no leather involved.
Can't believe I just said that. Sorry.
And then running into the guy who ran Formula One. Now, Joe, how do we start to train ourselves to be better?
Oh, blimey! How long have you got, guys?
I got 20 minutes.
23 minutes.
Okay,
how
cool.
long you got?
And we want to hear about your new course.
Okay, thanks. So honestly, it starts by acknowledging. For me, it starts absolutely by acknowledging that we are recognizing that we are responsible for ourselves, that we're responsible for those thoughts and those feelings. I always start by talking to people about the questions I ask them are things like, so tell me who in your life, who makes you feel angry? And people will reel off a list of other people from their lives, people like, their mother-in-law or their children or their manager or British Gas or the government or the person that drives in the middle lane of the motorway, or they'll reel off this list of people who make them feel
Mayor
angry,
of London,
right? And then I say to them, but who is responsible for your thoughts? And they'll say, oh, I am, obviously. And who's responsible for your feelings? And they'll go, oh, I am. And I say, okay, so if you're responsible for your thoughts and your feelings and your behaviors, which most adults will say, pay lip service to and say, yes, I am, then let's go back and look at that first question again. Who makes you feel angry in your life? You do. You're the only person that can make you think, feel, or do anything.
That is profoundly true. And we're all on a spectrum of mastery. And perhaps most of us begin at blame and then slowly work our way up to the pinnacle of responsibility at the top. Yeah. But I'm just going to put this little disclaimer in. Some people are very, very... For example, let's take an extreme example. If someone broke in my house and wrote Neil Long is a tosser on the walls, I would be angry. Yes, I'm responsible for that anger. And by the way, Russ, don't ever do that again. I'm responsible.
I thought you find it funny, but...
It's not funny, I told you.
It's a human.
Vicar was coming round that day. Anyway.
Well, he wrote it.
So there is a level... Some people's behaviour is not acceptable. Let's put it that way. There's some things that some people do that are not acceptable to any right-minded person.
You get mugged in the street, you're entitled to...
By being responsible for ourselves but still acknowledging that that's not acceptable.
Well, that doesn't mean that other people's behavior has to be completely acceptable, that you have to be completely okay with everything that everybody else does. When they do something, when that person's broken into your house and deflowered your wall and all of that, then what they're doing, your reaction to that is a subconscious automatic reaction based on the beliefs that you hold in your subconscious mind about what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. And what you and I think is acceptable and not acceptable might differ wildly, and it might be the same, because we're all subject to similar kinds of beliefs. We're all part of the same kind of community, same kind of society. So those are part of the beliefs. So we're conditioned from being small children that this is acceptable behavior and this is not acceptable behavior.
And belief systems can be changed, you're saying?
100%. That's what I do with people all the time. And I don't mean that I would change people to think that being robbed was acceptable. Not at all. And I wouldn't say that I would change people so that they don't I wouldn't change fucking anybody, excuse my language. They change themselves, right? But that's not up to me. But I wouldn't say that feeling anger is a bad thing, in inverted commas. All of our emotions.
But it's exhausting, Joe.
What, feeling anger?
It's exhausting.
Well, if you do it permanently, a short-term response maybe, but it's not meant to be chronic. It's meant to be acute.
Mm.
And this is the point with our emotions, right? Emotions are there to tell us something, to tell us that we're having some kind of reaction, to signpost us to some kind of something. They're there to give us a message of some kind. And quite a lot of the time, because we don't want to feel the ones that don't feel very nice, we try not to.
Mm.
But the paradox is, the more willing you are to feel, the quicker you are to heal, right?
Yes, exactly that. And that's part of the responsibility piece, right? So that thing happens and you feel angry. That's okay. It's totally okay that you feel angry, because it's not acceptable what's happened to you, what someone else has done. And that's brought up that feeling of anger inside you. What you then do is take responsibility for the fact that you are feeling anger, and you allow
questions.
To feel it.
3 questions, Joe, coming in from the viewers, from our audience.
Go on.
From our audience. Right. So let me just get the first one up. This is from Maya Rizal. It says, what of those, and then I'll get on to the other 2, including Graham. Right. Maya, what are those thoughts or feelings that are precipitated by the actions or behavior of a third party?
That's pretty much what I asked, wasn't it?
That's exactly what we're talking about. If those
there you go.
Feelings, right?
I think that's your answer there. This is a good one coming in from New York City, from Manhattan. I think there's a typo, so I'm going to punt with it. We are triggered all the time. Well, you are, Elizabeth, not everybody. I am, but I and you are maybe. We are triggered all the time by earlier stuff.
Now, this is interesting because 2 people could meet who've got completely different sets of triggers and could be triggered by something completely different, and each other could accidentally trigger each other, but none of those 2 parties could possibly know the past of someone else. And essentially, I suppose this is what living in the present really means, because everything has to be based on something that happened in the past. So you need to be clear of the past to live fully in the present, if that came out right.
Yeah, but we don't. We carry so much damn baggage, and we don't want it.
We do. I agree with Neil. We want to be putting the past down, but also, oh my God, there's a lot of it, right? So actually, it's about being gentle with yourself, the compassion piece again, right? In this moment, allowing yourself to experience whatever you're experiencing right now, regardless of where it came from or what you've got triggered, just allowing it to be, allowing yourself to feel it, allowing yourself to move through it so that you can come out the other side of it.
And this links perfectly into the next question and a point I was going to bring up, actually. Joe says Fat Scotty, and we're allowed to call him that because even his mum calls him that, and he's cool with it. He's a DJ as well, but we forgive him that. 40% of men called in sick due to mental health issues they'd never admitted to. Is it easier to recondition women than men to be happier with themselves and their own mental health? I would wager a yes on that, because women tend to be more open with their feelings as a generalization. And when I was feeling unwell about 2 or 3 years ago, I was not allowing myself to feel certain feelings, which was making me worse. And this is where the self-compassion came in, because my wonderful therapist, who I always shout out on the show, Rosie Whetstone, said, Neil, you were dealing with a near impossible situation and you had a natural, normal human reaction. In other words, an attitude of allowing on her part and self-compassion on mine, which she was trying to engender into me.
Let's get Joe Happiness Howard's answer to Mr. Scott Lyon's question.
Okay. I don't think it's easier to recondition women, or for women to recondition themselves, because nobody does it for them, than it is to recondition men. I think women on the whole, and this is a massive generalization, find it easier to ask for help to do that.
Do they?
I think they find it easier to have a conversation about
Yes.
So, for instance, when I started out, I'm a therapist too, obviously. And when I started out as a therapist, I did a lot of networking. And I would go to networking meetings and you stand up and you do your 60-second, this is what I do, and blah, blah. And women in the meeting would come up to me afterwards quite openly and say, oh, do you know what? I've had anxiety for 10 years. Don't suppose you can help with that. Or, oh, I'm a bit stressed at the moment. I don't suppose you've got any blah, blah for that. Men would come up to me afterwards and talk about their cars or their business or football or whatever they felt like talking about, or their kids.
Really? That's stereotypical.
Yeah.
Really?
But then I would leave the networking meeting, and 9 times out of 10, there would be at least one man that followed me to my car. Not in a dodgy way, but to have a conversation with them. They didn't feel comfortable having in front of everybody else in the room, but they'd come out to the car and say, actually, do you know what? I've got this, and could you help with that? But
there is a time and a place. There's a time. I'm a very, very private person. You wouldn't actually think so, but in real life, I'm extremely private, and there's very few people that I confide in. I mean, very few.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? We're all different. There are women that feel like that too. Yeah. I think just the way that we approach it is different. There's an amazing man that actually I've come across recently called Ryan Park, who calls himself.
He's been on the show.
He's just phenomenal.
Yeah, we love Ryan. Ryan's been on the show.
Love him.
You and I, Neil. Great chat. Yeah,
brilliant take on men's mental health. And
yeah, good guy.
Now,
good guy.
You will see on the screen, dear viewer and listener, well, not listener, but viewer, and listen up to this if you're listening, a link. I've changed it into a tiny URL because it's a lot simpler than the one you sent me. That was Swahili. And the chances of people typing that into their browser are about the chances of Kylie Minogue knocking on my door and asking me out. So
it could happen, Neil. You've got to think big. Plan for success.
Padam. So the link is https.
What the hell is tiny? What is? I don't understand it.
Tiny URL is a way of shortening links to make them shorter and easier for purposes exactly what we're doing now. So it's tinyurl.com/Happy Joe or https://tinyurl.com/Happy Joe, and that will take you to a page which is all about your new course, and the inspiration came to you for this last night. And here you are promoting it this morning on MRS. The universe doesn't muck about.
Slow coach. I mean, absolute slow coach.
I know, isn't it? Right? It took me ages. It took me 10 minutes last night to come up with the idea. 10 minutes and the last 10 years, I would say, to come up with the idea.
So I'm getting from that. There's a lot of wisdom packed into this. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I've done obviously a lot of personal development work myself over the last however many years. And the last couple of years has been much more in terms of energy and spirit and how this whole thing called human life actually works. And I have, especially in the last year, especially this year, looked at the belief, I guess you'd call it, of non-duality, of the fact that we as human beings believe that we are separate from other human beings, but the truth is we're not. We are all one. We're all connected. I am you, you are me. Everything is connected. Everything.
You don't want to be me, Joe. I'm telling you that now.
Only on certain weekends, but I'm not willing to talk about it in public.
You really don't want to be me. I'm saving you.
But that is a universal truth, isn't it? This idea that we're all one. And it's a universe. That's why it's called.
What? I don't know. What do you mean we are? I don't understand what the hell.
Well, no, but this concept of non-duality or unity was introduced to me about 20 years ago when I read an incredible book which I've talked about on this show called Conversations with God. I've put this on the screen before, right? And it struck me that and before that I read books by Wayne Dyer, people like that, who had the same kind of ethos. And it's a universe. Uni means one. It's one verse or one song. It's one. It's one. Therefore, all right, let's put it in simple terms. There's a connection between everything.
Yeah. We're all the same energy, right? We're all the same universal energy. We all come from the same energy. We all return to the same energy. And that universal truth has been taken by different groups of people and sort of twisted and turned around and become different religions and different modalities and different ways of thinking. But it all kind of comes back to this idea that we are all one. So anyway, I've been doing all of this work and researching all of this stuff. Yes, Rumi, absolutely.
I'll meet you in the quantum field, Maya.
Yeah, and I decided yesterday that I would like to do a 6-week course, which I'm calling the expansion experiment, because I believe that's what we're here for. I believe we're here to learn and grow and expand our experience, expand our energy, expand the universe. And so I'm looking for people to join me on this expansion experiment for 6 weeks, where I will guide you through things like radical responsibility, right? So we've talked about responsibility already. Radical responsibility being literally that you are responsible, not in a blaming way. You are responsible. You have created every single thing that has ever happened to you, every conversation you've ever had, every situation you've ever been, that you've created it for a reason, for yourself to grow and expand in some way.
Now, the difficulty where most people, and this is where I got hung up and still do a little bit to this day. What about the really bad things that happen? Let's take the current thing in. And I'm not denying that
I'm going to be honest. I'm unlike most radio hosts. They will go, yes. Joe, I'm utterly bewildered and lost. I am not following this
at all. Lovely.
And I work on the basis that if I can't follow it, there'll be some in our audience who also can't follow it.
Absolutely.
I know Neil gets it. I don't get it.
I am very, very up for the idea that not everybody that I speak to about this is going to understand a bloody word that's coming out my mouth. And they're not the people that I'm looking to work with. I'm looking to work with people who have an understanding of what.
And it's essentially being more of you.
But I don't think I'm going to be
there. Okay, don't worry. That's groovy.
It's essentially being more of who you are, though. It's essentially being more you, isn't it?
Yeah. It's looking at things like radical responsibility and extreme appreciation. So again, I practice gratitude and have done for years. Appreciation is a different thing. It's a different vibration to gratitude. And again, it's about going out there and appreciating everything that happens. So we're used to showing gratitude for and appreciating good things that happen to us, right?
That's okay. All right. I'm with you on that. That's all right.
But how about if we appreciated all the shitty things that happen?
No, I will never. Joe, I'm telling you now, this is my line in the sand with this. Okay. I will never, ever appreciate some of the things I've
And this is where people get hung up. Ever. And when it comes to we've created everything, let's take a topical thing, no, it's probably out of taste to say, but something terrible, someone gets murdered. Did they create that? You know what I mean?
See, I hate
plane crashes. Did
I
they
really
create
have
that?
a problem with it.
That's where I get hung up. But I remember Oprah being interviewed about this, and she said exactly the same thing, exactly what I'm saying right now. Yes, I can accept the responsibility. Yes, I at least intellectually get this idea of expansion, non-duality, unity. Yeah, I get it. But that,
Neil,
and that's where I got hung up.
Neil, I'm going to say this publicly. I wouldn't. If I hear Oprah say something, I will believe the absolute diametric opposite. I think Oprah. No, don't even get me started on Oprah.
She's not your woman, no.
Because they're highly litigious, I am not going there. Okay. I'm not going.
I suggest we stop talking about Oprah Winfrey.
I'm just saying I am not a fan, nor do I believe anything that she says at all. Just don't.
Cool. Cool.
Note to self: don't use that
very
example.
Clever woman.
Again,
don't misunderstand me. She's a very clever woman and made herself a multi-billionaire. Give her that, 100%.
Yeah, she has.
So if someone does this course and follows all the steps, what can they expect at the end of it?
What can they expect at the end of it? They can expect to have a true understanding of expansion as a human being, expansion as a soul being, expansion as an energetic being, to expand their thinking, to expand their beliefs, to expand their emotions, to expand their experience of life, because that's what we're here for, to experience experiences. I know that sounds a bit silly, but that's what we're here for. We're here to experience all kinds of experiences in order to grow and expand ourselves.
And
See,
if we are,
that begs the question. Sorry,
Yeah.
I wish you were on for the next hour as well, but I got a podcast to do. That begs the question.
Yeah.
Whether you believe we're here for a purpose or we're just here. And I think we're just here. And if we're just here, you might as well make the best of it and have a damn good time, because it's a very short ride. But that's a
belief too.
It's a very
As
short
is
ride.
We're here for a purpose. It's all beliefs.
Everything
is made up of beliefs.
That's it, right? Exactly that. It's all belief and it's all perception and it's all perspective.
Yeah.
All of it.
Okay.
And this is just a different perspective on the experience of life on Earth. That's what it is.
I get a really good feeling about this. And what I would say to anyone that's looking at this and shouting at the screen, 20 years ago or so, I was in exactly the same place. I would have said, oh yeah, right. I don't know, Lockerbie, when that plane crashed, so that was created by the passengers, was it? And I get quite sarcastic about it. And there's still a little bit of me that get hung up, but it's much, much less now. It's a micro to what it used to be. And this is exciting work because I've done some of it myself. And the experience for me has been, just a shift in perception and becoming more of who I am and much more okay with who I am as a person, as an individual, with all my faults and foibles and all my great bits as well, which we've all got. And it's really, and I found it a really, really, really good stuff with the right teacher, which I'm sure you are. In fact, I know you are because I know your work, but there are some people who do take these things and kind of put their own agendas in, or even worse, pervert them for their own, agendas. But when taught in purity, then it's
okay. We got 2.5 minutes. 2.5 minutes. Tell me the difference between gratitude and appreciation.
Gratitude is a beautiful, beautiful practice. Don't get me wrong. God, I looked slightly crazy then when I looked at the screen. Sorry.
Well,
gratitude
camera doesn't lie, baby. Camera doesn't lie.
Gratitude is a beautiful practice. It tends to have a slightly heavier vibration to it, a heavier feeling to it, because it suggests that we've overcome something. We're thankful because we've overcome something, because we've left something behind, which actually means we haven't left it behind. Appreciation is pure. It is utterly pure. Sometimes we get the two mixed up. We think we're practicing gratitude and actually we're practicing appreciation.
I'm still not getting it. I'm so sorry.
Appreciation is, don't apologize. It's a pure vibration. So I can sit and appreciate the beauty of these red roses next to me.
Okay.
Just in a completely pure way, right? The color of them, the shape of them, the petals,
I get it. All right, I get that.
Right?
I get it. Right.
Gratitude tends to suggest that we have overcome something.
Yeah, I've heard that definition before. And here's an interesting thought, Russ. Here's an interesting one for you, Russ. In accounting, in the accountancy world, what does depreciation mean? It means it gets smaller. But that's depreciation's opposite is appreciation.
It's worth less.
Exactly. So appreciation is its opposite. And if it's true that what we give our focus to increases, which is a psychological law, whatever you appreciate appreciates. So put your focus on what you want and what you appreciate, and chances are you'll get more of it.
Guy, you two have lost me today. Tell it. I remember you from last time. I love you being on the show, and I like the fact that I can say to you, I don't get this. I'm not following it. Not that I don't want to follow it. I genuinely am
Well,
struggling.
Then you need to come
and
do the course, right? Then you need to come and do the course, and I'll teach it to you. There you go.
I tell you what, Joe. Why don't you come back on? If this is all right, Russ, come back on in 6 weeks after the course. Tell us how it went and some of your results.
Okay.
Or come back before. I love having you on because I find you're a smashing guest and you can discuss it and you don't get huffy, which is fabulous.
https://tinyurl.com/happy Joe. tinyurl.com/happy Joe. That will take you straight to Joe's page. And if you do the course, I'm sure it'll be
I want to get you back before you
disappear
disappear in 6 weeks' time. All right. Joe Howarth, thank you so much. Neil Long, as ever, always a pleasure. Neil and I will be back on Wednesday. Hopefully you will be too. Until then, try and stay out of trouble.
Thank you, Joe. Good afternoon.